Hello and welcome to the Hub on CGTN. We're from the site of FOCAC 2024. This year's FOCAC brought together some 50 African leaders, heads of state and heads of government convening in Beijing, China. For today's special program, we're very pleased to have with us a group of journalists from Africa who are covering FOCAC 2024. They are Jainaba Sonko from Gambia QTV. Welcome. We also have with us Fortune Abang from News Agency of Nigeria. Welcome, sir.
Good to have you.
And Rawlings Otieno from People Daily of Kenya. Welcome to this special program. So, your third time in China? Your third time in China? Your first time in China?
Yes, my first
Meaning you
time.
have all these fresh perspectives, fresh eyes to look at this country.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to you first. How do you find China? How do you like the city, Beijing?
Yeah, I love the city. The moment I came and 1 week old, I fell in love with the city for so many reasons. I think the main reason is how much China values its tourism. You know, the different tourism sites that I visited, how organized it looks, and how much China also values its culture. Less crime in the city, very clean city, a lot of bicycles. I am a climate change journalist. I have covered the COP in Scotland, in Dubai, so I have a clear understanding of the effects of climate change globally, especially for the African continent. So when I came and saw bicycles all over, which is a very sustainable way of transportation, emitting less CO2 and all of that, I was quite impressed, and I'm going to be here till December. So I am quite certain that there will be more for me to see and more things to excite me.
You have 2 more months to go, and
Yeah.
I understand that, gentlemen, you have been in China for the past weeks, if not months. Your third time in this country, does China look the same to you? In what ways has it changed for you? I mean, with each passing time, does the country strike you as different? Rawlings.
Oh, okay. This is my third time in China, in Beijing. The first 2 times I came, it was just a very short visit, just about 2 weeks. And I spent only 1 week in Beijing. The other week I spent outside Beijing. What has struck me this time round is the level of technological advancement. Right now I'm able to stand in front of a fridge. I can get a bottle of water, and the money will be deducted from my phone. That's something that I didn't see in 2019, the last time I was here. I would say that I'm impressed with the level of development, the level of security. I'm very safe. I feel very safe in China.
Fortune, how's China impressed you?
Wow, quite breathtaking. I just can't wake up from the dreams. It's like a dream, you know. I shouldn't ever dare to open my eyes, you know, getting to wake up and never going back. I came to China first in 2022. It was a dream come true for me because I read so much about the greatness of China, you know, going through literary write-ups. You have the picture in your head, wow, what's this? Is it a fantasy? Is it a folk tale? Is it something that is just imagined? I told you about making it in Shanghai, high-rise buildings, airports, the aesthetics. And I began to appreciate the people, you know, minding their business, you know, focused, always on the move, marching like they're going to war.
Top of your interviews, of course, you guys are covering FOCAC 2024. I'm just curious, as a peer, as your colleague, as a fellow reporter, what are your angles? What are the stories you're pursuing for this year's FOCAC?
So like I mentioned, I am very interested in climate change, and there's a joint declaration between China and the African continent when it comes to combating climate change. Obviously, the main polluters, we know them, and China and Africa are coming together to ensure that the main polluters get to pay for the damages. We've seen the issues of damage and loss. For example, the Gambia contributes 0.01% of global emissions, and yet we get to pay for a lot of damages. So I'm looking forward to conversations that will emerge from this particular joint declaration between China and the African continent to combat climate change. And aside from that, I'm looking forward to conversations surrounding young people, because as a youth show program host in the Gambia, it is important that we bring up the conversations of how the young people of the Gambia and the young people of China and the young people of Africa and China can come together to devise ways to partner, to bring in solutions to the common problems that African youth are facing and Chinese youth are facing, because youth-related problems are across the world. They're the same things. So it's a matter of a global collaboration to make sure that the changes are there. And then finally, I am also looking forward to a very clear perspective coming from the African continent in relation to the opportunities that we can leverage on when it comes to China-Africa cooperation. For example, China has the vision 2035 in relation to Africa-China cooperation. I mean, the AU has its vision, it's there, but I'm looking forward to a more specific vision according to the different blocks in the African continent. For example, West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, clearer working together, because it's a level playing field that the Chinese government is displaying, so we have to leverage on it.
Fortune, what stories are you pursuing?
You know, I look at where they can have a framework, you know, to really achieve what most of this cooperation sustained, you know, at the level of the global challenges that is, you know, forthcoming. We are, you know, looking at closing gaps, especially with the event of revolution or evolution of artificial intelligence. What are they really going to bring to the table, you know, to make sure this thing does not really create gap between these two developing entities? So what is China going to offer Africa in terms of artificial intelligence to prepare itself ahead of the global challenges ahead of it? What is China going to be offering Africa at the level of technology, you know, to closing the gap and also dealing with the local challenges? What is China going to be offering Africa at the level of security, where the world is disintegrating, you know, based on one bias or the other? Especially Africa, like she mentioned, is in dire need of this right now. This knowledge sharing, this roundtable, this critical engagement of critical mass stakeholders, you know, coming to the fore. What is the main problem? Identify the problem, stating what it is all about, and then coming up with suggestions, you know, to ensure a sustainable solution. So that is what I look up to in the area of technology, agriculture, in the area of blue and green economy, in the area, you know, of environmental challenges, climate change ahead of us. So what are there? Because every forum seems to always come up with something new. So these are the new aspects I'm looking up to.
Rawlings, what are the interesting stories you're looking at this year's FOCAC?
My main focus in this year's FOCAC is basically two things. One is on food security. I'm talking about mechanized agriculture. In Kenya, for example, we have Sino-Africa Joint Research Center. It's basically a center that deals with looking at how to improve the quality of seeds for various products, from grapes, maize, beans. Because one of the issues that affects Africa is hunger, food security. I'm looking forward to see how China can help Africa in terms of food security, enhancing food security so that we are food sustainable. Then the second thing is development. China has initiated the Belt and Road Initiative that will really open up several places in Africa. It will ease transport cost, it will ease transportation of goods and services from one place to another. It will create employment along the corridor where the roads will be constructed. I'm looking at a cooperation where Africa will be opened to be accessible from one corner to another. I'm looking forward to a cooperation where the highway from Nairobi to the border of Kenya and Uganda is open, so that Uganda can also pick it from there and take it to the border of Uganda and Rwanda, and then Rwanda can also take it up to DRC. And within a matter of years, the entire Africa will be united through accessible roads. Another aspect I'm looking at is technology. There's a lot of technological advancement in China. I believe that through this cooperation, such technological advancement can be replicated in Africa to accelerate the levels of development. I'm impressed when I come to China. I would one day want to see a level of development where I come to China is the same thing I see in Nairobi. For example, the roads that have been constructed in Kenya by the Chinese are the same. When I go to Nairobi and I come to Beijing, it's the same style, the same design, the same everything. So those are the things that I'm looking at and I'm focusing on.
So Jai, the theme of this year's FOCAC is Together for Modernization and Higher Level China-Africa Community of a Shared Future.
Yeah.
How does this theme resonate with you?
Yeah, I think this theme resonates when they talk about modernization. For example, in the Gambia, through the Roads and Belt Initiative, there's a region in the Gambia called the Upper River region. about 5 bridges and numerous roads have been constructed along this region. This particular region was so dry at a time. The level of investment was so low, the movement of goods and services was terrible. But since this particular development, a lot of investment, a lot of movement when it comes to goods and services have taken place. The China-Gambia cooperation is improving from strength to strength, and the modernization that is embedded in this particular theme is something that is already a reality in the Gambia. You know, apart from that, we talk about the construction of boreholes across rural communities that, you know, lack water, wash facilities. We've seen things like that. And aside from that, modernization comes with education, especially STEM-related education. Over 300 Gambians are currently in China pursuing bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhD programs in STEM-related areas. And that is part of modernization in the way that, you know, China talks about the fact that we want to teach you how to fish, not just to give you fish every single time. You know, that is sustainable development, and modernization has to be sustainable. So that's what comes to my mind when I reflect on the team.
Very good, very impressive. Fortune, what do you think?
Well, I keen to what you just said, because it is very apt, and not just apt, but it is very germane, because it's opened vistas for Africa to really change its narrative and, you know, deviate from the past. Because if you look at it from the results so far gotten since inception, you discover that most African countries have really leapfrog, you know, in terms of infrastructural development, technological advancement, you know, innovation, integration, you know, in terms of even support system, access to loans and access to people-to-people exchange. It's not just the Gambia you have, you know, coming to China to, you know, acquire knowledge. Nigeria too, you know, I have a lot of them. I'm a beneficiary of that. So I see it as a cross-cutting solution to myriads of problems, you know, that have been there for centuries. And I think it is just the best thing that has ever happened in the world of cooperation, diplomatic engagement. And I think much should be done. I don't think they should take this with kid gloves. I think the leaders need to, like, wear more of their thinking caps. It's the mirror, because it's how you engage that determines what you really come out with. So I see tomorrow as another cutting razor for a new dimension, you know, for this modernization to be a dream come true, not just for China, but for every aspect of Africa, for every sub-region of Africa.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
No more. No one again. He can hold in guns. Guns, something forces in words. We protested.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Guys, I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you guys about the nature of China-Africa relations, right, Rawlings? If you think about it, Africa has been likened to this big, tall tree blessed by nature, but whose yields falling through the big tree and through the fences to other people's backyards, meaning alluding to the fact that the people have been taken, unfortunately and tragically, as slaves, and its land and resources have been exploited again and again in the past hundreds of years. How do you feel about China coming in as a player in the past decades after China gained its own independence? Some frame China as this neo-colonialist power, as if exploiting resources is the only thing it has in its mind. Others see it as more of a benevolent force, seeking win-win cooperation, mostly business-wise. How do you look at that?
Africa has got everything in the world. Africa has got everything. Talk about resources, talk about human resources, talk about mineral resources. The day we'll have leaders who are not greedy, the day we'll have leaders who are focused on improving the lives of their citizens, the day we'll have people who are not just looking at themselves, but at the bigger picture, global picture, that this is where we want our country to head to. I think that day Africa will become modernized. So I think there has been issue of greed among the leaders. There's been issue of not staying focused, and this issue of just discipline. We are not disciplined, unfortunately.
So I think the fact that China comes in and supports the African continent and does not attach any strings, it's a level playing field for us. I mean, I can't run away from what you said anyway. The fact that whatever the case, China comes in and does not attach any strings, because China does not interfere in the political affairs of African countries when they support. They don't tell you how to govern things. When you're enacting laws at the level of the National Assembly, you don't even see them commenting. For example, in the Gambia, they wanted to repeal the law on FGM. I didn't see the Chinese embassy say anything, because they feel like these are laws that are supposed to be made and voted in by citizens themselves. Even though they're supporting us, they're just taking a layback seat and not involved in some of these things. But I think I can't run away from what you said, because even with all of that support and all of the natural resources that the African continent has, for example, taking a look at Nigeria, with all of the abundant natural resources that exist, Nigerians are supposed to have proper social protection systems to protect vulnerable women, children, old age, and all of that, and we do not see that. But like you said, African countries have to totally double up, especially at the level of corruption.
Agree with that?
Yeah. I need to talk about what I feel about China now cooperating with Africa and what it portends for Africa. I think it's a good thing. If this level of cooperation is escalated, I think Africa will develop very rapidly, because China is coming in as a friend and as a partner, not as a colonialist. In the past, I think the cooperation that has existed between Africa and other countries in Europe and Western, I think it has been of they are the prefect and you are the students. But China is coming in as we are friends, and it should be a win-win. It's a symbiotic kind of relationship, not parasitic, where only one person or one organization or only one partner gains more than the other. But I think China is coming in as friend of Africa, which is a good thing.
Let's even borrow the paradigm that says that, until philosophers are made kings and kings philosophers, development will continue to elude mankind. This has got to be a foundational fabric. This is what Africa is lacking. We have a crop of people that are missing, the link to solutions, that are missing the link to the basics in terms of fundamentals that makes a leader. What is the leader coming to solve? What ability has the leader to solve the problem? If you want to borrow the leaf, you discover that we all borrowed most of our culture from the Western media, from the Western imperialism. And this has not helped us, because we did not look within ourselves to find solution within ourselves. Until you come in that process, which China did, which China took, and it took China to where China is. Most of the Western culture, European, all of them did that. But Africa seemed not to even have a definition of what it ought to have. Every young mind, every egghead, everyone, even watching right now, because the future belongs to us. That's what we were taught. But it takes those with the guts, to take a bold step and really make it work. For instance, now, you're coming to see everything in China. It's not a miracle. it was invented, it was conveyed, from ideation stage into production stage, into package state. And now everybody's coming to admire it. We all have what China has in Africa, and that's why we are similar in everything: human resources, natural resources, land size, population size. But what is there is the results that is lacking. So I'm saying this forum should be a platform where we followers should in a way challenge our leaders. We should also use it to also reinvent the wheel, to engage critically. Gone are the days where policies are made without the critical engagement of the masses. Gone are the days where policies are made without the interest of the populace, the citizenry. Gone are the days where policies are made without the knowledge or even the presence of those they're made for. Gender laws, environmental laws, rights laws. So I think it is time for everybody across Africa to watch this forum and know where we are losing it in order to know where we should get.
Sounds like a campaign speech.
Yeah.
No.
If I was a voter, I was going to vote for you.
I know. I don't like
Well
politics.
done.
Me
Well
too.
done. Well
Count me
done.
in. As a Chinese, traveling a few times, fortunately, to Africa is a humbling experience.
Yeah.
It's a journey of being educated. You talk about China helping Africa. My advice, whenever I get a chance with the senior diplomacy people or people in publicity, is that we should perhaps think about soliciting help from our African brothers and sisters when it comes to China's outreach, international communications. Because we're not doing a sufficient job, let's be honest, especially when it comes to breaking down the barriers and narratives set up by the Anglo-American media. Our English capabilities are not there. Our global communication strategies have room to improve, and we can certainly borrow help from you guys.
Sure.
How about sending a bunch of reporters, English language reporters, to Gambia,
Yeah.
to Nigeria?
That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
be
that would be
great.
great,
That would
yeah.
be great.
We await them.
Yeah. Like I said, I want to see more of that. I feel like it's one-sided.
The
For
integration,
example,
yeah, the
currently
integration, yeah.
through the ICPCC, China Press Communication Center, there are about 94 journalists, from Africa, Asia Pacific, Latin America in China, learning and understanding the culture and everything. So if the right exchange happens, then I feel like we'll both have the proper understanding. And with that, like I said about the young people coming together for initiatives, will be even easier because then the understanding is on both sides.
So what are the things that China should pay attention to going forward when it comes to its engagement with Africa? Because you do talk to some friends in Africa, getting on the continent and talking to folks. Not everyone's happy, not everyone's benefiting.
For me, I think there's one area that Chinese is still under-exploiting in Africa, and that's the African media. The African media is being under-exploited, and China can exploit the African media to its advantage. Why am I saying that? There's so much that African media can get out there, things that the Western media is not doing right. And China can use this opportunity, using the African media, to make itself, to publicize itself, to market itself. That is one. I also feel that they normally say that a good idea can be made better. And if China has come to Africa and they've seen the level of corruption, the level of greed, and the level of such vices, millions of Africans who are suffering because somebody somewhere did not want something to be done in the right way. Yeah. Look at the level of development in China. You've reached that level because you are disciplined. We are not. Is there something you can do to Africa so that we are disciplined? I'm only saying that, as I began by saying that a good idea can be made better. If China got it right, what is it that they did that they got right? Is it something that we can also do to get it right?
What did China do to get it right? You asked the right question. Yeah. And it's also unraveled the failures, the lack, the link that is not there in Africa. I'll tell you, I won't call it fanatical. I am a very good student of President Xi Jinping. I don't just study a success. I study their stories. I study their footsteps. I study their passion. What informed that motive? That's how I swallow the person. Now, I discovered that he had been a part of the system Good enough, his father was a leader, so he learned good trade from the father's tenet, and he mastered the craft. He did his homework. He set the long-term goals. So it was so sweet for him to build a class of his ideology, and it worked out well under a communist system.
It is working.
Now, you cannot teleport that from that climb to a climb that is not really related. You understand? This is a communist system. Now, Africa's system is so diverse, so heterogeneous. So now what we need to do is, like he said in one of his books, I can't ever forget his words. He said it like 3 times at different fora. He said, Africa needs to start studying its own tradition and indeed transform its modernization through those traditions to get it right. Stop looking at the West. Stop looking at outside. It's all within. So you have to remodel, reinvent everything, review it, and remodel it to your own pattern. You can't borrow culture, for instance, and expect to get it right. It won't work. It's like a round peg in a wrong hole.
Very well said. You know what, Namibia, for example, of which the president that I interviewed today, you know, came up with this socialism with Namibian characteristics. It's written into their party, Swallow Party's charter, not so long ago. So we'll see. I mean, I agree with you in that there's a fine line between helping and interfering.
Yeah.
And I also agree with you that China has this long and enduring tradition of not interfering, right? Because I think about our own border and territorial issues, about Taiwan. If we, you know, we give people the perception that we're interfering, what about the Americans patrolling the South China Sea, or you know, keep sending weapons to Taiwan, or trying to secede Tibet or Xinjiang or Inner Mongolia away from China? It's a long debate, guys. I hope to have you back soon.
Sure.
We'll have 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that will do it for this edition of The Hub on CGTN FOCAC Special. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. We have Rawlings, Fortune, and Jay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.